On yesterday's show, we went over a New Hampshire poll showing Nikki Haley vaulting past Ron DeSantis. She is now coming in second in New Hampshire. This is huge. You cannot overstate the importance of this. A new CNN poll of New Hampshire voters was released late Thursday night, and it's even better news for Haley. And this should be keeping Donald Trump up at night, but he doesn't sleep, so everything keeps him up at night. The poll shows Haley coming in second with 20% of the vote and Trump getting 42%. So Trump is coming down and she is going up. And as I've been saying for the past 3 months, Trump's poll numbers have only one way to go before New Hampshire, and that's down. He has a base and a ceiling, and that ceiling is going to keep coming down, 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 and become his base. And he can't win with just his base. I know hope springs eternal with never-Trumpers. Well, I'm not a never-Trumper. I'm a Democrat. But the never-Trumpers are getting excited because there are little more than 2 months before the New Hampshire primary and the Iowa caucuses. So it's not too difficult to imagine that Nikki Haley, with momentum, with other candidates dropping out, and more Trump missteps, he's misfiring in his speeches. It's not hard to imagine Haley picking up steam and surpassing Trump in the New Hampshire primaries. Keep in mind, Nikki Haley doesn't need to win in New Hampshire. A strong second place showing is enough for the narrative to coalesce where Nikki Haley's the only one strong enough to challenge Donald Trump. She doesn't need to win the New Hampshire primary. She just needs to come in a strong second. A lot of people think in 1968, Lyndon Baines Johnson dropped out because he lost the New Hampshire primary to Eugene McCarthy. But he didn't lose to Eugene McCarthy. McCarthy just did incredibly well, and it signaled to Lyndon Johnson, this is not, my days are numbered. So even though Lyndon Johnson won the New Hampshire primary, he didn't win it by enough, so he dropped out. She doesn't need to win New Hampshire or Iowa. She just needs to do really well. She's the one. She's the one. When you look at the 2016 Republican race, Trump was up against I'm showing a picture. There were like 10 guys on the stage at that time. But he was up against 5 incredibly strong establishment candidates when he got to New Hampshire for the primary. You had Ted Cruz, Chris Christie, Marco Rubio, John Kasich, the Ohio governor, and of course, the frontrunner, Jeb Bush. It was a much stronger field in 2016. Trump was up against a much stronger field in 2016 than what Trump is up against right now. So these guys split the Never Trump vote back in 2016. Trump got 35% of the vote in the 2016 New Hampshire primary. Kasich, the Ohio governor, got 16%. Cruz got close to 12%. Jeb Bush only got 11%. Well, right there, you add that together, you got 39% versus Trump's 35%. You throw in Marco Rubio and Chris Christie, that's 17%. That gives you 56% of New Hampshire Republicans in 2016 not voting for Donald Trump. Okay? So, what we're seeing in the lead up to Iowa and especially New Hampshire in 2024, like I just said, is Donald Trump going up against a much weaker field than he did in 2016. And that could prove more of a challenge to Trump because It is now much easier for one challenger to emerge, and it's Nikki Haley. It's Nikki Haley. There's DeSantis and Chris Christie and Nikki Haley. That's it. And Iowa is, we're talking 2 months. I mean, they really have filtered out the candidates, much more so than in 2016. And that's bad for Trump because of Haley, DeSantis, and Christie. One of them will emerge, and more than half of the Republican Party theoretically will coalesce around them. Ramaswamy is nothing. He's a zero. So more and more Republicans are starting to see a clear pathway for Nikki Haley, especially if Ron DeSantis drops out before New Hampshire. The problem is Ron DeSantis just got the endorsement from the governor of Iowa, so he has to stay in the race until Iowa. But if he doesn't do well in Iowa, then it's down to Haley, Christie, and Trump going into New Hampshire. If Haley looks like she's going to be beating Trump in the next 4 weeks, Christie's donations start drying up, and so does Ron DeSantis's donations. And so you got Chris Christie dropping out, and he's going to campaign for Nikki Haley. And if Ron DeSantis is out of the picture, I mean, he's got to stay through Iowa. We're looking at a very interesting race, really interesting. Trump versus Nikki Haley. This is, if it's down to Haley and Trump, Trump, what does he do? Does he fight dirty? How does he do this? Yeah, that's all he knows how to do. But will that work against a woman? And Nikki Haley, I was reading about her over at Semaphore. Dave Weigel, I think it's Dave Weigel at Semaphore. I apologize if I'm getting the author wrong. But he was talking about how she won the governorship in 2010 in South Carolina, and it was dirty. I had no idea what they did to her. They accused her of cheating on her husband. Men stepped forward saying that they had affairs with her. It was grotesque, and she rose above it all, and it just empowered her. So Trump may not be equipped to deal with somebody like Nikki Haley, a Republican. It's hard to demonize a Republican woman in the Republican Party. Hillary is a different story. If it's down to Haley and Trump, with Trump going through 4 criminal trials before the convention, that's what it's looking like. 4 criminal trials in the lead up to the convention, plus the rape trial. That's the day of the Iowa caucuses. Trump knows that unless he wins the presidency, he's going to prison. That does things to a man, changes your mind, changes the chemistry in your brain. Trump is now fighting for his life. And this could end up being the ugliest and dirtiest race for any party's presidential nomination we have ever seen in American history. We saw 2 days ago what these Republicans are like in the House during these hearings. We see the infighting that goes on. This could be very, very ugly, and not in a good way, right? I'd like to see Republicans beating up on each other, but this could get really ugly because Donald Trump will not accept defeat, especially from another Republican, especially from Nikki Haley, a former member of his cabinet. There is no reason to think that if Trump loses, say, South Carolina or Florida to Haley, he will unleash an army of lawyers. He'll unleash a Brooks Brothers riot to physically threaten Haley, campaign officials. I mean, he did lose in 2016. He lost the Iowa caucuses to Ted Cruz. The first thing he said was fraud at the polls. He said Ted Cruz stole that election. And then Trump started winning, and so he didn't have to play the election interference card. But if he starts losing some primaries and he's fighting for his life now, the thing about Trump is he doesn't limit his vitriol, his threats, his physical intimidation just to Democrats. In fact, if you're a Republican, you're more likely to be on the receiving end of Trump's verbal and physical abuse than you are if you're a Democrat. More Republicans have been physically and emotionally abused by Donald Trump than Democrats. Ask Rusty Bowers, the former Republican Speaker of the Arizona State House, or Brad Raffensperger, the Republican Secretary of State in Georgia, or, of course, Mike Pence. Remember Mike Pence? Seriously, ask Mike Pence how dangerous it was for him, not just on January 6th, but out on the campaign trail, how MAGA Republicans showed up and intimidated him. So, Wall Street money is rushing right now to Nikki Haley. It's rushing away from Ron DeSantis, not going to Chris Christie. There's nobody else left. So all the Wall Street money, she's the last hope for Never Trumpers. Tim Scott's donors, such as they were, have reportedly moved over to Nikki Haley and are flooding her with campaign cash. We are getting reports of a small private breakfast that Nikki Haley flew into New York for. She's the former United Nations ambassador under Trump, and she's well respected among the financiers on Wall Street. She held meetings earlier this week, top secret meetings with former Trump economic advisor Gary Cohn, who hates Trump, the head of BlackRock, who hates Trump, one of Mitt Romney's associates from Bain Capital. They all reportedly met secretly with Nikki Haley. And Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, helped orchestrate all these meet and greets. And they seem to be willing to throw money at her, a lot. She's already spent $10 million just for December alone for ad buys in New Hampshire and Iowa.